Okay, can everyone hear me? Maggie, can you hear me? Maggie? What about now? Okay. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. All right, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Trustee Bell.
Here.
Trustee Brewer.
Here.
Trustee Grant. Here. Trustee Zelinski.
Here.
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 Wait a minute. What about now? Okay.
Maggie, can you hear the mayor better now?
Can you hear me now, Maggie?
I can.
Okay. I guess there's a lot of reverb going back and forth, so many speakers on. I just wanted to make sure you can still hear us. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, the first item, we're going to do executive session at the end. So we're going to start right in with our discussion. And the first person is Mr. Pfefferman. If you can come, are you being represented by someone going to talk for you, Mr. Pfefferman? Okay, right behind you. We need another chair.
Mr. Perkins.
We'll need another chair. There's a chair right there.
That's what I was asking.
Oh, no, that's cool. There's a chair right there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alan. My name is Alan Pfefferman.
Can you,
Can you hear me okay?
go ahead, Al.
My name is Alan Pfefferman, and I'm the proprietor of the cafes and the strip centers behind Popeyes on Circle in the Plaza.
Can you pull your mask down?
Oh, yeah.
Better?
Yeah. Go ahead, Al.
And I'd like to increase my license for selling beverages to include hardware, so that we can have a type of a sports bar there. But right now, things are very slow, and we'd like to bring some business into the plaza.
Okay, what you're asking for, I'm just assuming you said increase, because right now you have a power license, which enables you to have beer and wine. So what you want to do is be able to serve hard liquor, correct?
Yes,
Which we're changing into basically a tavern type license.
right.
Okay, because we don't have any available, so the board would have to vote to, the one that we had is when they left it was sunset, so therefore it is not in existence. So the board would have to say, okay, we can bring that license back, and then you have to apply for it at that time.
Fine.
So that's what you're asking for, is to do that. Do you know which parlor?
Sherry's Club.
Okay, sure, okay. So, and that's what you're basically asking the board to do, is to enact a license for that particular business, correct?
Correct.
Okay. We're gonna, this is something that if there's anybody that wants to say any discussion for it, if not, then we're gonna put it on the agenda for next week at the board meeting to be voted on. But is anyone here have any questions to Mr. Pfeffer? Trustee Grant.
Quick question. Out of your customers, are there quite a few that actually come in and ask for hard alcohol?
Yes.
That was it.
Any other?
I have a quick question. What time do you plan on opening?
I'm going to let that be answered by our manager.
Don't you usually open around noon?
Well, we normally open earlier. I'm Sandy Devlin, and I work with Alan. The concept is we would really like to make it a sports bar and grill. Increase the food. I personally have been involved in the restaurant business my entire life. I was born into it. So we do want to have, besides the hard liquor, we do want to have some quality food can be carried out. We're looking at doing, like a Chicago type of thing. And of course, coming from my Italian heritage, we're going to slip some Italian things in there too. So,
Oh.
so we would be open earlier than noon because we would like to be able to serve. We would like to be able to serve, lunch specials and things like that. And then whatever the license the village allows for closing, we would of course follow whatever those guidelines are. But we're looking at putting in more TVs and really, going with a sports type of theme, not just a gambling thing. We really want to make it a destination where people can come and order food, and like I said, we can have carry out, and we can also have dine-in. So I think we put together a pretty awesome proposal for the place. And I worked with Alan and have for a long time. So we would appreciate your vote for that license.
Thank you.
Trustee Williams.
How soon do you anticipate opening? I know with the COVID restrictions, there are very limited restrictions. How soon do you anticipate opening? If it were to be approved, how soon would you anticipate opening? Okay.
She said as soon as it's approved, it will be. Now, you do know that the license that you're asking for is the same type of license that lounges, that we only have one lounge in the village. So it'll be that type of license, which enables you to sell liquor too, bottled liquor going out. So, and then also I heard you say something about food, so therefore they would have to have a food license, which is something different. That would be something that would you can apply for, and that's not a problem for that. It's just that liquor license, so just so you know. And then also you would fall under the same guidelines that the lounges does. So if they go back, if the state goes back to where, because at one time if you had a lounge, you had to serve outside. So you do understand that. And then you will fall under that license. So it won't be, you can't drink inside, but you can still have a parlor. That's going to change. All that's going to change, so you understand that. Okay. All right, I just wanted to let you know. Anybody else have any questions? Trustee Brewer.
Is it possible to get a copy of the proposal that you are, because we're not going on until next week, so we can sort of review, ask questions? Do you have anything, is it possible to get a copy of the proposal that you're talking about? We're not voting until next week, so we'd like to know what, some of us are not, can remember everything. So if you could give us something in writing, or is that possible? I mean, you just mentioned the kind of things you were looking to do, and you're right now you're just looking for the liquor license, but I'd like to know, what else you want to do, those kind of things. Oh, okay, great. That's fine.
Any other questions? Okay, Madam Clerk, if we can, put this on the agenda and be voted on for the liquor license for next week. And we can move forward with that.
Mr. Mayor, this requires an ordinance? Does this require an
No,
ordinance?
we have an ordinance already.
Okay, you
It
said
just-
one had gone away. now-
Okay, what it is, the license was sunset.
Okay,
When, what's the name of the place? Wise Guys was closed, they had the only other liquor license along with tequila. So when they closed, their license was sunset. So only way you can bring it back into existence, the board has to vote to put that license, that particular license back into existence. So, okay, any other questions? Okay, then what we'll do is, next week we're gonna vote on it, we're gonna have it on the agenda, if you wanna come and hear the vote, you're very, very welcome to, and, we'll go from there. And if it gets voted on, then we'll move forward with doing what we have to do after that point.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is, Ms. Maggie Jarrett. Can you hear us? Maggie, can you hear us? Hello?
Yes, Martha, right. Oh, okay, great. And can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you, Maggie. Okay, great.
Can the board hear?
Should I begin, Martha?
That's as far as it goes, sir. Yes, Maggie, Mr. Mayor, yes, you can, you start, I guess you're gonna start with the water audit first and drinking water. Okay? Can you hear me now?
You're on. Okay, I'll be good. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm joined tonight by Justin Keller and Alicia Wu from the Metropolitan Planning Council. They're also on the line. Thank you all for viewing our presentation in advance of tonight's meeting since we cannot be there in person. The recorded training and presentation, as you know, covers water management best practices for municipalities, the importance of conducting a water loss audit, and an overview of our own water loss audit project, which kicked off officially this spring, which is pretty exciting. Justin and Misha, I wanted to invite you to say maybe a quick word on where we are in the process right now, and then we'll check in and see if there's any questions to answer from the mayor or trustees.
Sure. Yeah, this is Justin Keller from the Metropolitan Planning Council. We are currently in a data collection phase. We've had meetings with Kevin Weller, Cynthia Hardy, and Cheryl Pike about getting the data that we need to conduct the audit. And we've received a good portion of the data that we need and are still waiting for just a little bit more. So that's the main bit of it right now. We're just in a bit of a holding pattern as we wait to receive the data, and then we're going to start in on the analysis. While we're doing that, we're doing a bit of research into potential funding options for the final grant. And that's the current status as we take it today.
Thanks, Justin. And as I mentioned in the video, this is really a two-parter, so we'll be back at the conclusion of the project to present at one of your meetings the findings from the audit and also to translate those findings into what next steps might be for the village. So we wanted to come to you this evening and present some of the preliminary information to kind of just lay the groundwork to make sure everybody was aware and reminded of the project and to let you know meeting, but we're here. And so I wanted to open it back up to ask if anyone does have questions for myself, Justin, or Alicia about the content from the presentation or anything related to our own audit project.
Are there any questions? Okay, this, Trustee Williams, can you hear me? Wait a minute. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, let me know if you can hear, Trustee Williams, she has a question.
There's a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, I know.
Margaret, if you'd be able to repeat the question to us, that would be helpful.
It's on. All right, Trustee Williams.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to know when you anticipate starting and how long you think it would take to complete this process.
Yeah. Maggie, can you hear me? Okay.
Great question. I'll throw it over to Justin and Alicia to talk a little bit about the timeline.
Yeah, we have already started. We conducted a couple of stakeholder interviews with village officials, and we're collecting data. So we are already underway in the project. We're essentially in step one of it, so from the presentation. And when we get all the data that we need, we'll move into step two. And I'll kick it to Alicia. Do you have an estimate of how long it will take to actually conduct the audit?
So for the actual audit, once we have all the data in line, it will be a very quick process for the audit itself, probably less than a week. And then we're going to move on to the control plan. And based on the results from the audit, and then the control plan come naturally, but we're going to have a detailed plan, so that might take a month. Also, so the whole process is actually most time consuming part of the data collection and organize and calculate the data. So I would say the whole process we are looking at from this time of point after we get all the data, and hopefully tomorrow we're going to get data from the billing department, and then I would say in 3 or 4 months, or hopefully we can come up with some initial control plans. So yes.
Thanks, Alicia. And that was a great point. The data collection phase is probably the biggest hurdle, and we're almost over it, which is great. Staff has been really helpful in providing us the information that we need. And like Alicia said, it might be just 3 to 4 months from now that we're able to come back with some findings of the results of the audit.
Okay, there's another question.
Yes, thank you. The second is basically a housekeeping issue. On the Drinking Water Academy proposal, the MOU, we have a different village administrator that needs to be named on this. So we just need to change the name of the village administrator.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions?
Question.
Okay, there's nothing, okay. Go ahead, Trustee Burrow.
Maggie?
I don't think we can hear you, we have to repeat for it. We have to repeat, so you go ahead and say something.
Well, what I want to say is I've read through the proposal for the water loss audit, and a lot of things that I've read in here are the same things we talked about or did prior to May of 2017. We talked about the water loss, which was 33% in 2017, and nothing since then has been done to even look that I know of, that to look at what we're doing to fix the water loss problem. I talked to you about this before, and I'm hoping you can hear me. I wish you would come and talk to us in person because I don't think we're getting everything that you need, but there's quite a few comments I would like to make because Robinson Engineering and also I think it was K Plus, all us, we went through this stuff before and we had all kind of data there that we should address. And now we're going back, it seems like to me that we're going back and doing the same thing we did before and nothing was resolved then. And now we're doing the same thing and I'm sort of skeptical about are we going to really do something this time about the water loss. Again, as I know in 2017, and I have paperwork at home, we had a water loss of 33%. And one of the reasons was all of the whole infrastructure out in the fields that were not plugged up. According to the Public Works, I think we fixed those and the water loss should go down. But I don't think anybody has done a survey to show that the water loss has been reduced since 2017. So that's why I would really like to know what is the water loss and how are we going to address that, first of all, and all the water main breaks and the pipes and stuff. Then here, what are we going to do about all that water main breaks? We're talking about putting in new meters and all that sort of stuff, but what about the pipes?
Thank you. I'm going to repeat the request for Trustee Brewer, who states that they explain his mention in a couple of questions. Primarily, what you're saying is that the village has really communicated and discussing the need to rectify water laws that have been in my years 2017.
Please add that we did this, study and everything before.
In our conversation with staff, I think there were some adjustments made from the previous audit study, and the idea in keeping an up-to-date audit study, it's good practice for the village to conduct one on a regular basis. And so our aim with this project is to look to identify where real loss is occurring, like leakage in the pipe, as well as where there's some apparent loss, could be some apparent loss, like meter or billing issues, and where that's occurring in the water, in the village's water distribution system. And so the aim of this project is really to pinpoint where the losses might be taking place and to identify solutions that could help recoup some of that. Justin or Alicia, do you want to add anything to that?
I do, yeah, and those are great statements and good questions. I really appreciate that. The recommended best practice is to conduct a water audit annually. So I know that there were some conducted in 2012, and then 2017, I believe you said I had one. I don't know if you're aware of that one. But help you identify where the major losses are. And it could be paper losses, it could be due to some accounting issues that could be addressed rather easily. But this is to feed into a larger, Maggie, I would get back to you potentially about a capital improvement planning process that you are possibly undertaking.
Yeah, this is all funneling into our goal to prioritize our investments, right? So knowing what high priority projects are from roadways to water system, that's going to help set us in a direction for us, for our own spending, but also for, what grants do we look for? What are we trying to fund here? What is most needed? So identifying those high priority projects is really key as a first step.
I have a second.
Additionally, I can add one more thing. Alicia is trying to set up a system so that the village can do this annually, identify where the losses are, and going forward, try to keep on top of these needs as they arise. Yes.
I have a second question. Maggie, you mentioned trying to find funding, and where does the funding, where are you looking for the funding for actually replacing those pipes and stuff? Those pipes has been around here since the village has been established, so we would like to know are we looking for monies for the infrastructure repair, the actual pipes? I'm not talking about meters or anything like that. I'm talking about the actual infrastructure, the pipes. Some of these things are really old, so are we looking for funding for that?
Trustee Brewer, you mentioned money, and specifically for the infrastructure, the pipes, not but the actual infrastructure, which is causing a lot of water loss in this project.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
I can address that. I'll just say that part of our water loss control plan is going to include potential funding sources. There are a lot of state agencies and regulators that are interested in conserving natural resources, including the region's groundwater. So there are some funding sources available. They are competitive. You have to apply for them, but we're going to do our best to identify feasible sources of funding. And ultimately, the water loss control plan is going to prioritize the high priority infrastructure for things that are the result of major losses. So part of our next step is going to be helping you think through what your next step should be, and that's what we hope to report back on when we come back in a few months.
And I'll add that it seems that there are new infrastructure programs coming online lately with the state's new capital plan, and now with some recovery resources related to the pandemic. It's going to be a huge benefit to the village to have a recent study completed that will help support any funding application that we might put forth. And so I do think by conducting this project, we are more competitive as a village for that funding in the future.
Because that's the one she's having the next meeting. When she's having the next meeting, when she's having the next meeting.
And when is the next meeting?
Which next meeting?
For the 1, 2, 3 academy. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are planning to come back once so we have the results from the audit assessment, and so that might be in 3 to 4 months, what we're projecting now. And if it's going to be much different from that timeline, I will update the group, but we can assume that we will come back with another presentation in about 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, well,
Another item on the agenda was the MOU that you presented. So the mayor is asking what's to be done with that.
There doesn't need to be an MOU listed on the agenda tonight. I provided it as an attachment to the materials to the board, just as a refresher. This is an MOU that we took to the board in early January of this year. So the partnership is already confirmed with the Metropolitan Planning Council, but I did include the MOU as just a reference material for the meeting tonight. So there's no action needed.
is there any other questions from any trustees? Okay, Maggie, do you have anything? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Mayor. Anyway.
What about now? I just, is there anything else you want to bring? That's what I was going to ask you.
That concludes our presentation and discussion. And if anybody has questions following tonight's meeting, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Will you be signing off now or are you staying on?
We'll sign off. Thank you so much, Marla, for today. All right, well, I'll get started together.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item is the maintenance agreement presented by Chief Barrett. I think there's a mic right there. And there's a little, I don't know what that's called, but it's a little. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All right, so you all should have received a copy of the intergovernmental agreement, which is an agreement held between our division, which is about anywhere between, I want to say, 7 to 11 towns. And what this agreement is nothing but us working together in the case of one of our pieces of equipment or any type of apparatus go down. If we need to borrow something from someone, this agreement will cover us legally. The insurance and all of that will be covered, and we could just share our equipment. And all the other towns and boards have been agreeing to this. Believe it or not, the insurance companies have is in agreement to this contract, and it's just pretty much all of us working together, all our towns working together. Especially, it came about because of all the all our towns is hurting pretty much, and so it's just us working together to make sure that we all can still support our towns if something goes down.
I do have a question. You said share equipment.
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking about services, but now you're actually talking about sharing equipment. So if something happens to our equipment under there, then they're going to cover it.
They are liable for it.
they're liable for.
In the agreement, I want to say it's on page 2 of the agreement, it states that the borrowing party is responsible for like making sure that the property was returned in the same condition. It's actually in section 3 on page 2, that the property or assets are lent. The borrowing party shall return the property in the same condition in which it was lent to the borrowing party. And it's just making sure that we get everything back the way that we gave it.
I mean, I just wanted to make, I mean, I understand that part, but
They actually,
it doesn't include
it includes everything.
our trucks.
Yeah, and section 2, it talks about property and vehicles that are owned. I can give you a prime example. 2 weeks ago, our squad went down, our truck was in the shop. We had no extrication equipment, I'm just being transparent. Luckily, our towns supported us. A piece of our equipment went down on a Friday at 12 o'clock. No business had the part that we need on Saturday. We couldn't get it to Monday. So in that sense, Creek Township has 3 squads with extrication equipment. If we had this agreement in place, we could have borrowed one of their squads until our stuff was fixed on Monday morning.
Any other trustee Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I understand this correctly, the borrower is responsible for any damage.
Correct.
Is there a checklist, like when you check something out, that
Yes.
you're gonna check out that all of this was working and they have to sign it?
Correct.
And then when you bring it back, somebody's gonna make sure that it's all in
The
good
same
condition? Okay.
Also in this, it talks about they get as deep into, you have to make sure that the fuel is put back at the same spot that you gave it, everything. So it gets very picky to how you have to return this equipment.
So in an emergency situation, like when you needed the extrication equipment, I'm sure nobody had time to actually go through a checklist to make sure that the equipment was working properly. But how are we going to just ensure that when we take something from another community, that it was working before we tried to use it, instead of getting it and then realizing it's not working and then blame it on us?
So in the sense that when we needed it, it wasn't necessary an emergency. If it's an emergency, we would just call mutual aid for that job to get done at the time. In the sense where we're doing a borrowing agreement, we have to make sure, I'm very picky on it. I don't let nobody come get a DVD without making sure that it's signed off right, and I get it back the same way. So in the same sense, if they come get this, there's a checklist that has to be done in order to make sure that we all are accountable for our own belongings.
Thank you. I figured you had that in place. I don't want to have that on record.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Chief Barrett, suppose a piece of equipment goes down, what kind of time frame do we have to get them to fix our material? Because, you know, I'm thinking the financial problem that everybody's in right now. So, you know, sometimes they say, oh, we don't have the money, you know, I mean, you know, do we have anything, kind of provisions that give us some kind of timeline? We got to fix our equipment back, you know?
So as always, Trustee Bird, you have good questions. We can never come up with a particular timeline. There are certain things that has to be done. Prime example, our truck right now it was a demo when our 2 previous chiefs bought it, and so they don't even make certain parts for it anymore. So it's 3 weeks out before we can get a certain part. So we cannot put a timeline on something when we don't know how long it takes to manufacture. And again, we are in the midst of a pandemic, and not every factory is working at full speed. So we have to give the mechanics grace. We have to extend them the same grace that we had for it.
Well, I understand that. I'm talking about, well, maybe they could look at it and tell us, you know, not just, because a lot of times equipment, and you know before, they never say anything is wrong, and we find out maybe a year or 2 later that we should have did this or whatever. I'm gonna say, do we have some kind of time frame that we work? Oh, okay, this equipment is not working, and we need this fixed, and can you give us some kind of little summary or something about, you know, when you think this might be fixed? They could take 8 years. Just let us know that okay, we got this on our agenda that has to be done, you know?
Again, we cannot give a timeline or, because we don't know how long it's gonna take the manufacturer to get it. The mechanics don't have everything stored in the shop, so they have to get it from another party. So whenever that party has it available, then we can get it. Again, like I said, we have a piece that is gonna take 3 weeks because the company that we originally had is no longer in business. The company that is there has to, because the part is no longer being made, they have to create something now, and that's gonna take, well, back then it was 3 weeks, so now we're down
So
to,
we get some kind of notice, that's the point I'm trying to make.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what.
but it's hard to tell how long that notice.
I'm not interested in how long it takes, just that we notify, that this has to be done sometime or another, so that's, a lot of questions I was trying to get to.
Chief,
But thanks, that's a good idea.
Chief, do we have anything, is this the first time we've done something like this?
Yes,
Okay, this is the first time, and then is there any,
well, let me say legally.
Okay.
I'm very transparent.
Okay, so this
We do, in the past, they have been doing it a lot. South Heights just asked us to borrow an engine. Unfortunately, we didn't have one at the time to give them. But it's just because we created a family, we understand that if anything goes wrong, they're going to be held responsible. And it's just an agreement that we always
so
have.
this is just, okay, is this annually? Or is this?
No, and also in here on page 3 at the top, it determines how long it goes. And in the case, well, it's actually in part 7, and it goes that the agreement shall remain in force and in effect until terminated by the parties. So until we don't want to do it anymore, then we have to give them 90 days written
And
notice.
this is like 8 or 9, maybe 10 different municipalities, so does everyone have to agree for this
No.
to work, or is it just?
It just goes down.
Okay.
So if you guys agree for us to do it, Sauk Village would be a part of it.
Okay.
So right now, out of all of these towns, I know majority of them their board has already turned in and submitted this.
And it's either party can pull away from this agreement, correct?
Yeah, we're not liable or held to anything, we just got to give them 90 days, written notice that we don't want to be part of this agreement anymore.
Mr. Hurd?
Board, if I could just ask for a little bit of time for our attorneys to review.
Oh, no, we're not voting on this today.
It's been reviewed already.
So I'm just, does anyone else have any questions in regards to this? Right, because this is just for equipment, because we do have a maintenance agreement for services, correct?
Correct.
And okay. So
That's something that's been in place for.
right, that's been, but this is something entirely different than this equipment.
Yeah, this came about because, like I said, the town's been doing it for the longest. They just came to a point where they just want to make sure that we doing stuff the correct way, legal, and we get everything.
Great job, yes.
So,
I didn't know that we were actually lending out equipment.
yeah, I mean, they lend out ambulances all the time.
Okay. No other questions? Okay, we're going to let the attorneys review this, and I think the clerk said they looked at it already, but if you have any other questions, please give this question to the clerk so she can get them to the chief, or if you have some questions, ask the chief. But I'm asking to have this put on the agenda next week to be voted on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hercules, you want to introduce? You everyone met? I forgot your name, I may need to be the first one to play. Maybe
Board, I was going to talk about.
it's not on.
It's not,
No.
Is it green?
How's that better?
Yeah.
So I was going to talk about the medical facility that wanted to come into town.
Tanya had actually discussed it before she had left. This is Dr. Duwade. Dr. Duwade is the doctor that is interested in building in our town. But she had a question about a survey she wanted to put out to the residents and asked for our help in distributing that. And so I asked her to come and talk to the board directly and see what your thoughts were. And you can tell her directly what you feel, and I think it'd be easier to do it one-on-one.
Okay. Okay, so this is basically, you're basically to see if it's okay to distribute this, is that correct? And then also, is it so, if the trustees have any other questions for you, or is it just for the survey?
Yeah, any questions you have?
Okay, all right. Well, then I'll, do you have anything to present before I ask the trustees?
I submitted the survey to the.
No, I'm saying, does she have anything to submit?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me. I've lived in Sauk Village with my family for about 7 years. I was away for training, then I moved back to the community. I was working at Olympic Fields. And, you know, just driving from Sauk Village to Olympic Fields every day, I just noticed the discrepancy every day. And I was looking on the website, and it said that Sauk Village is looking for people to open medical practices, and I was thinking about going to private practice myself, and I thought I could do one here in Sauk Village where, you know, you have access to primary care. I'm an OBGYN by training, so I deliver babies and I do women's health specifically. But I do have a connection of doctors or family doctors, pediatricians. So the survey is to find out what the need is, what people feel like they need in Sauk Village. And there's a question on there about the ages of people in the household, and that's to know if there are more children, then we want a pediatrician. And there's an older group, then we want a family doctor, an internal medicine doctor, just to gauge what the need is so we bring the right specialties to the community. So that's what the survey is for. Also, there's a question about insurance on there. That's so that we don't set up a practice that doesn't accept the insurance that people in Sauk Village have. So we want to know what kind of insurance people have, so we make sure when the practice is set up, we're accepting insurance that allows people to have access, and we don't create a barrier and defeat the whole purpose of building a practice.
Okay. Ms. Irving, is this any way in regard to the agreement we did before this, in conjunction with the agreement that we signed for 150 days?
The company that you signed the agreement.
This is the company, okay, I just wanted to make sure, I just want to know, okay.
Yes.
Oh, great, okay, that's good. Is any, trustees have any questions? Trustee Grant?
Thank you, Mayor. What kind of response rate are you looking for in regards to this?
I was hoping for at least 80% response rate, but you know, which is why I wanted the city to help distribute it. If I went door to door, I might not be able to cover as much ground as if the city helped distribute it, and we can get the responses back here, and I can get a good percentage value of what the need is.
And then it's not just for Sauk Village residents, even though you're surveying Sauk Village, but it's open to any.
Absolutely, yeah. So I have a patient base, like I said, I worked in Olympic Fields. They do want, currently I don't work in Olympic Fields anymore. I don't have a practice in Olympic Fields anymore. I work in a hospital. So I still have people sending me messages that when are you going to have an office. So I have a patient base that will also be coming, but I want to primarily serve the people in Sauk Village.
Trustee Todd?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, could you spell your name?
Yes. Sorry about that. My first name is spelled T as in Tom, A-I-W-O, Taiwo. Last name is spelled D as in David, U-R-O-W, A, D as in David, E. So if you take it 2 syllables at a time, it's Durowade.
Well, one of the things with our water billing, why couldn't this survey be put in the water bill?
That's what Mr. Herkes suggested when I contacted him.
That's what once a month.
Getting it back.
Right.
Yes, that's from the big.
How would we get it back?
Well, they when they pay their water bills, they mail them in, they mail it in with it, or when they go into the village hall.
Right.
And also, I would put them out in the hall and things like that. That's one way to get this out.
I asked my dad how he pays, because I live with my parents. I asked my dad how he pays the water bill, and he comes to the city hall to pay it. So I was thinking they could just, whenever they pay it, whoever is the receptionist who give them the service also fill out while they're there. And that can increase the return.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Herkes and I discussed the distribution as well as the retrieval, and we were looking at options. And even though I don't think that it is for this board to determine how you will receive your responses and how they're processed or whatever, I can see us assisting with the distribution of it, and that would come back from the board. But I would think that your responses and collection of your data would be something that you would bear that responsibility. And then I shared with Mr. Herkes a mechanism, but I did not think that it would come up in today's meeting at all. But I am going to ask that you consider exploring something that's called Google Forms.
That's what I did. I created that with Google Forms, but I wanted to have a physical copy for you.
Right, so if you did Google Forms, then share with us the link.
Okay.
I would think that we could put the link in the water bill. We could put the link on the website.
Okay.
We could put it on Facebook, but then you just have to take care to make certain that that one person does not respond 2, 3, 4 times, otherwise it's going to skew your data.
Correct.
But I would think that this would be the very best way to do it, and I do see now it says Google Forms.
I thank you for sharing that about the link. I didn't know that we had those online access ways. I imagined when I was asking Jerry about how to retrieve them that I would just come to the city hall and pick up a box full of papers and analyze the data that way. But I do realize that could be tedious.
Google Forms will do some of that data for you, the data collection, and lay it out in terms of your response rate and the percentage that each question was asked.
My only question for that is, do you expect that I'll get a big response rate with a link in the water bill, or will people make that effort to go to the website?
You can't really be certain. I think that you probably want to triangulate your method of distribution. And I think that's something that we can discuss, and I'll be more than willing to work with you offline on that. That's not something that we would do here. I think what's most important is if the trustees are in favor of assisting with the survey, and I think that's the step that we're at right now.
Okay, Trustee Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also see on your form that you have urgent care on here. Do you think you would actually be set up for urgent care? And what hours would it be, basically, urgent care?
That's a great question. So it depends on if there's a big response for urgent care. The other consideration with urgent care is that you might get people sent to Franciscan in Indiana, and that could affect insurances in Illinois and Indiana versus Franciscan over in Olympia Fields, because this is closer. But if there's a big need for urgent care, I definitely am talking to the developer about that as an option. And I can also pitch to Franciscan if they're interested, instead of an urgent care in this area, to facilitate people going to their ER. The hours, that's a good question. I have not reviewed that in detail, but I can get information about that.
Because the reason I'm talking about the urgent care is we actually lost Chicago Heights as an option.
Right.
And we do have to go to Olympia Fields. And not everybody can go to Indiana.
Correct.
So that's very intriguing. I'm
Okay.
very interested in.
So yeah, I mean, if urgent care is a big demand, then
Yes.
it's something that I would pursue.
And the second thing, at number 3, it says, what other businesses do you think should be in the center? A gym, a restaurant, a grocery store, other medical practices. So you're actually considering doing something that broad as well?
So in talking with the developer, the space we have is too big for just one medical practice. And so we're considering other ideas about what we can do to make it a complex. And I want to know, my desire is to put businesses, is to bring businesses, number one, but also to put in there what people will patronize. And so if we call it a medical center, then maybe only medical complexes, a dentist,
Right.
an optometrist, family practice. But if they wanted to just be a business complex, then we can have other, depending on the responses from the people, other businesses there. Yeah, it's pretty large.
I want to thank you very much for answering the questions. I'm excited about the possibility.
Me
Thank
too,
you.
thank you. Yes.
Trustee Burrow?
Um, My question is, what hours are we talking about?
For my practice?
Yes.
8:30 to 5, but we want to incentivize, so we might have a Saturday office day, we might have a late night or early morning office day, depending on, different practices do that now, just to make availability for people to work. In this atmosphere, people are working from home, we don't know for sure if we'll need to implement that, but that would be further down the road when it picks up.
Okay. And the only other thing I noticed on number 4, you want to know what kind of insurance. Now, me personally, my insurance will not let me visit a doctor outside of the network. So when you get the facility together, are we going to have different doctors for different networks, or how is that?
So the purpose of that question is to make sure that when we set up the practice, we accept insurances that majority of the people in the city have. If we only accepted Blue Cross and Blue Shield, then that defeats the purpose because people will not have access to it. So I want to know what most people have. That way we can make sure that we accept that insurance.
Okay. When do you have anticipated start date or anything? I know you're working on it, but.
Right. I mean, we have to first, talk to the lenders and I talked to the lenders today, and I'm optimistic about, their interest as well. Start date, I'm hopeful by mid-July to September next year.
Trustee Bell?
You're talking about building where the bowling alley used to be, right? Between by Popeyes and Sugar Shack?
Across from, correct, yes. That's the land that Tanya's looking at.
Have you already purchased it?
I'm talking with the developer right now about how to acquire the land.
Right now, it's in stages of survey and everything else, getting everything in legal. She just wants to get I guess you want to get a heads up of what it is that you can bring back to whoever your lenders are.
Correct.
Let them know what it is that you like to open up, what you think people would like to see.
Correct.
And so that's basically, I'm just looking at, that's the reason why you're trying to do this survey, so you can say, okay, most people want to do this, this, and this.
Correct.
And, financially, that's how you're going to plot it out, so.
Exactly.
Okay.
And also, it will help structure how to build.
Absolutely. But you can always add on. Just
Correct.
you need a spot, anchor, and then therefore you know when you put that anchor, you know how to put everything up.
Correct. Correct.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch with you to let you know how we're going to disseminate this. Some of the trustees want to give you their survey, I guess.
That was good to put a name to a face. And you said somebody else.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, it'll take long.
And that difficult, right?
Somebody let me take it.
Thank you.
I know. Okay, public comment?
All right.
All questions, comments, be directed to the mayor. Each speaker may comment on any matter pertaining to the business of our village. Each speaker is allowed one opportunity to speak up to 3 minutes and may not engage, debate, or counter replies or rebuttal. You come up, please state your name for the record. Oh.
If, Ms. Brown, if you would like to make public comment, you need to unmute yourself.
Does anyone have any questions that it is here? Come right up and, I'll give you a mic. State your name.
Good evening, my name is Latasha. I've been out here in the Sauk Village for
Your last name, please?
Hosch, H-O-S-C-H. I've lived in Sauk Village for about 16 years. This is my first time coming to a meeting because I work the night shift. My question, I'm trying to figure out or find out who do I speak with. I have 2 properties on my block that is covered with trees. The grass and stuff has not been cut, and it looks terrible. I do have another question. My second question is, on my property, they came and tore up the concrete with the, I guess it was a water leak. Do they repair that? Will that be repaired?
Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Well, let me tell you first for you, so you can be careful. What I was going to say is, the one that you're talking about, the first one, as far as the grass, did you say grass and trees, or you just say grass?
Both. The grass is really high, and the trees, it is covering the house completely. You can't even see.
Okay, is the trees on the house property?
Yes,
Is the house abandoned?
yes.
Okay. And the other one was, I guess there was a leak on your property, correct?
Yes,
And then, they repaired it, but then it's still a mound?
yes.
Okay. Yes, we'll get the village administrator to get your address and, get on that and, give us a little time to do it. And if it hasn't done, I would say within a reasonable amount of time, please come back and let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. At this time, I'll accept a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of, yes, of the personnel, the only that I can think of. I don't know who's here to present that. Okay. I'll accept the motion. Moved by trustee, Bell, second by trustee Jazinski. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Brewer,
Yes.
trustee Jazinski,
Yes.
trustee Grant,
Yes.
trustee Todd,
Yes.
trustee Williams,
Yes.
trustee Bell.
Yes.
All right, motion carried. We're going to go into executive session and tell you the truth, when we come back out, we'll just have just general comments, so there won't be anything else to discuss. So if you'd like to stick around for that, no problem. If not, then you understand. But thank you very much.
But can you let me know so that I know whether or not to disconnect this? If they're going to stay, I will have to keep all of this.
Oh, you mean if anybody, okay. Okay, we're going to go into comments from the, we don't have to vote on it, reconvene, this is just a mini meeting. So, okay, Madam Clerk, please. We're coming back. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. That's what I was saying. Okay. I'll accept the motion to reconvene.
Second.
It was moved by trustee Bell, second by trustee Williams. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Jazinski.
Here.
Trustee Todd.
Here.
Trustee Williams.
Here.
Trustee Bell.
Here.
Trustee Grant.
Yes.
Trustee Brewer. Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, comments from the trustees. Starting with trustee Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to announce that we are having a free food box distribution this Saturday at Bloom Trail High School. Lineup starts at 9 o'clock. So in September, we have one on the 5th and the 19th. I'm not sure about any other dates at this time. Thank you.
Trustee Jazinski.
I have nothing there.
Trustee Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your box, I left a memo from the Department of Treasury relating to the property taxes, and that prices has been inverted with the help of Mr. Finch and also Finance Director Michelle. Michelle. So anyway, the price has been inverted, and we, in March of 2020, they had sent a notice saying that if we hadn't did the treasurer report that we wouldn't get our property taxes. Mr. Finch went down and did whatever he did in the last couple of days or so, and that's being handled. This copy of the memo in everybody's office. And that's what I was alluding to last week when we talked about the rule should be there, but it was there, and also the research was there too. So now guys, there's something in the box, we need some additional information about Mr. Finch, because he has already taken care of it. But if he forgot about it, he'll tell you he forgot about it. That's something that we need to be more conscious of. You know, when we're doing stuff like that, because everybody has a little play
Okay, trustee Bell.
Just stay vigilant. Towns get crazy. Keep the porch lights on. Watch out for your neighbors. That's it.
Trustee Grant. Trustee Todd.
I have nothing there.
Okay, thank you. Well, we don't have a few people here, but you'll be getting some things in the e-news and I guess it'll be e-blast, e-news. We're going to go forward with the corn and dog rolls this year. It'll be on the 26th of September. Flyers will be coming out pretty soon. It is going to be in conjunction. We're going to change things a little bit this year. We're going to have a movie night included with the corn and dog rolls. So we're going to try to do both. This way we can try to hopefully get things in together, but we're going to be experiencing, and also we're going to make sure that social distancing is put in place. So we'll have the large area to do that, and hopefully we can have a good time doing that. So it'll be on the last Saturday of this month, and it's going to be looking at it to start at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it can run right into the movie night. And the movie, and I'm sure everybody probably could guess the movie, what it's going to be, but I'll just say what the movie is. The movie is going to be Black Panther. Well, you haven't seen Black Panther? No. Okay, anyway, that being said, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Everybody.